All right. So hopefully this isn't going to be a boring talk, and we can go through a few quick things about financial wellness, and I'll give kind of a quick example of doing so. Okay. All right. All right, that's my title. And some disclosures. So essentially, I'm not a CPA, nor am I a licensed expert. I've never studied this in college, so take everything I say with a very, very big bag of sand, not even a grain of salt. And everything that I'm going to be talking about is going to be very simplified. So big picture, you guys want to talk to me afterward, we can chat, but this is just going to be a very quick talk. Okay, so this slide, essentially, what is financial wellness? And you can define it in kind of different terminology. It means different things to different people. To me specifically, it is not, the point's not to get rich particularly, but to get to that state of mind where you don't really have to worry about finances. You don't have to worry about, let's say, your next paycheck, what I'm gonna do when I'm 50, how I'm gonna get my kid out of college or into college and out of my house, et cetera, et cetera. So it's to get you to that point. There's no dollar amount to this. It's just something that will make you and your family feel comfortable. The next big question is, how do I achieve financial wellness? And it's kind of a big question particularly. There usually is kind of a few things that you need to do. One is keep organized. Two, you need to have some discipline. And three, you need time. And we'll kind of elaborate on that. So I'll just be talking about one of the strategies that you can kind of reach to fulfill financial wellness. And this is probably one of the easier ones. It's just more of a passive investment strategy. Essentially, this strategy uses a lot of index funds, essentially a conglomerate fund that you can just put your money into and just let it sit for a few 10, 20 years and kind of see it grow, hopefully, unless we head into World War III, in which case our finances probably won't matter too much. Nuclear holocaust, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a few things, and this is kind of the boring part of this talk. Essentially, allocations. What is comprised of this kind of passive investment strategy? And you can take a look at like different websites, different articles, books. Economists kind of have honed down on a few key funds for a passive investment strategy. A lot of it details three kind of main distributions. One is going to be essentially a mutual fund or an index fund that categorizes and focuses on US companies and stocks. Another is going to be focusing on some international, so kind of the same idea, a conglomeration of different stocks and purchases, but in the international market. And then another is in more US Treasury bonds. These are more of the kind of stable component of your entire fund. And there's certain percentages here that will change as you kind of grow older, just to give you a little bit more safety. The international stocks are a little bit more volatile, developing markets, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really hard to determine how far these will either gain or depreciate. US stocks in the middle ground, and bonds are usually the safest. So as you grow older, eventually you'll increase more of your funds and allocate them more to bonds, but that becomes a little bit more complicated. We're not going to delve into that today. Okay. So another thing we need to understand is safe withdrawal. So once I have all this money, how much money do I need to withdraw, or can I withdraw per year, so I don't end up homeless at 70 going to Fayette County asking for a turkey sandwich? It's probably a good turkey sandwich, but okay. So widely, there's a few studies. One of the biggest ones was called the Chen study. It's pretty much an economical paper that's looking at what your success rate for retirement is and how much or what percentage of your portfolio can you actually withdraw per year, so that you don't become like me and become homeless when you're 70. And that's widely regarded as about 3 to 4%. You'll probably be closer to 3% to maintain a little bit of leverage for safety. And that's the kind of main definition. It's essentially what you can actually withdraw over an X amount of time so that your portfolio doesn't hit failure. So essentially you don't have any money. Okay. Another topic we got to talk about is market indexes. So essentially, how can I be sure that I'm actually going to make money instead of losing all my money in the stock market? Because that sounds like a big sell, and I'm probably selling you snake oil. So I'm hopefully not trying to sell you guys snake oil. The S&P 500, many people probably heard about this particularly. It's an index of 500 large US companies. And essentially, the key component I want to make is that historically, over the last, I would say, 90 to 100 years, the stock market has made about an average return about 10%. So that's where this hope in investment goes towards, that whatever you put in every year, it's going to be volatile too. So it's not every year going to get 10% or less. It's on average. So that's where the time component of this all comes in. It's about 10%, but kind of counting into inflation, it's going to be about 7%. So more or less, you'll probably have about a 7% gain per year post-inflation. But just keep in mind the 7%. Okay, we're almost there. So the key component of this whole talk is for me to get you guys interested in putting some money maybe into this passive investment strategy. And we'll kind of go through a few builds to see what can happen. Hopefully everyone that's zooming in can see these numbers. So this is assuming, say, you're Rossi and you're working 60 shifts at San Gregorio or whatnot, and Rossi wants to put in $20,000 per year into this passive investment strategy. Okay, sure. All right, Rossi, got you. Okay, so you put in 20,000, and this is all very simplified. Say that you make that 7%, so you'll make that about $2,000 gain for that year. Your total investment now becomes about 21,000, 22,000, give or take, at the end of the year. Say Rossi wants to retire, and this is going to be different because depending on your funds, you can't withdraw from specific funds that you put into that early, kind of your Roth, 401, 403s. A little bit too complicated, we're not going to talk about that. But say Rossi somehow wanted to retire and somehow was 65 or whatnot, Rossi. He can probably withdraw about $650 in perpetuity to last about 30, 40 years. So I'll see you at county getting those turkey sandwiches. Give him another 10 years or so. If he keeps putting $20,000 in, he can probably make about, let me see, I can't read it in that small screen, so sorry, I have to turn to the screen here. He'll probably have a total, at the end of that year, about $400,000 invested. So for the next 30, 40 years, he can most likely take out $12,000, assuming that he hit retirement age. There's also taxes based on that, but essentially, that's kind of the point. 10 more years goes by, Rossi has about 1.3 million now saved up, probably 20 cats at that time. And now he can probably get about $40,000 out. All in caps, all in caps. 10 more years goes by, he's got about 3.7 million. Now he can take out about $112,000 per year, plus or minus taxes. And you'll probably be closer to retirement age at that time. Actually, no, still a little bit early. Depends on how much cat food you bought. Is this a whole joke? All right, so now let's do another experiment with $40,000 a year. So let's say Pat Leaf makes a lot of money in Hawaii, selling magic box jellyfish thing cures, and he's putting $40,000 in perpetuity per year. The same amount increases exponentially. So after about 30 years or so, Pat Leaf is most likely withdrawing about $225,000 a year. About 30, you don't have to withdraw all of it, and this is only pretty much that 3% that you're taking out of your portfolio. So it's I can't go back on this, but it's a little bit of a higher jump from putting $20,000 in. And this is just to illustrate that kind of change in depending on how much money you put in versus a certain amount of years. All right, let's say Stern works nonstop. And Stern works 30 shifts a month somehow in a 28-day month. He covers double shifts. Stern somehow puts $100,000 each year over 30 years. And now you can probably, after 30 years, take out about $500,000 for the next 30 years or so, plus or minus taxes, if you're at retirement age. That's quite a good sum of money. And again, this talk isn't to highlight what money you need to be financially well, what money you need to retire. But given that sense of, you know, I'm putting money into my account and I have some type of buffer for retirement, that's the kind of key aspect I want to get out of this specific talk. So money that you put in compounded with time can give you a sense of financial safety, which and thus gives you a little bit more financial wellness. So Kevin, you're still trying to sell me snake oil because I don't know if the market's going to crash and I'm going to lose all my money. I'm going to end up with you at county getting turkey sandwiches. So there are certain calculators out there on the internet that essentially all we have to go off of is historical data, like World Wars, the Great Depression, things like that. And these calculators essentially highlight these key points. So if your retirement strategy can withstand all these terrible things that happened in history and the stock market didn't crash, then most likely it'll survive through these influxes in the market. What this particular site does for FireCalc is you can put in a principal amount, say that you know you finish all your work and you retire with about 300, well, that's too little. You retire with about, let's say like $1 million or $2 million, what have you, and you specify a set amount of time. How likely is it, given all these influxes? It'll plot you pretty much into the historic past, depending on a certain time period. How likely is my fund going to last me? How many times is it going to fail? Here's an example of it. So I think I plugged in about, let's say you ended somehow with $1.5 million and you decided to retire at that time. This is over a 30-year time frame. Don't worry about all these little squiggles. Essentially, each particular line starts at a certain time. So 1940, 1941, 1942, et cetera, all the way to 2017 or so. If I started at a particular year and that goes on for about 30 years for my retirement, how likely am I going to fail? So when is my account going to hit $0? And you can kind of play with this calculator to see. Your only goal, and the only thing I want you to take away from this is, you don't want to hit this line, because that means you'll be joining me. So don't hit that line. You can play around with a few different numbers. You can withdraw certain, you know, quantities of money in certain years, but it's an interesting tool to play with. And for me, it gives me a little bit more security into planning my future so that I don't have to worry as much about that. So a few key points to take away. One, plans will vary person by person. Your retirement strategy is not going to be the same as other people, just like your financial wellness strategy isn't going to be the same as someone else's. Wellness means different things to different people, and that's totally fine. Always keep the safety fund. I didn't touch on this, but this is very important, particularly. Don't go investing all your money in snake oil, Chen funds. Always keep a safety fund just in case something happens to you, okay? And you want to start as early as possible, but don't put all your money in because some random guy is telling you to do it. You also need to enjoy your life too, okay? And that's about it. These are some of my sources. This is not quota.